Hello BookTube. I'd like to talk today about the books that I have received from the library, just because I think libraries can always deserve a little bit more attention and more love here on BookTube, and I just like to talk about how much I utilize the library and about how much I love my local library. Uh, I use it so often and I get so much from there that I would otherwise have to pay for books that I'd otherwise have to pay for out of my own pocket, which I can't really afford to do right now. Yeah, without further ado, let's get started. The first book I have is Inherit the Wind by Jerome Lawrence and Robert E. Lee. Right here is a short little play about a teacher who wants to teach evolution in a very religious state, and he wants to teach evolution to his students, and he gets called before the educational board to be punished. The back says, the accused was a slight, frightened man who had deliberately broken the law. His trial was a Roman circus. The chief gladiators were the two great legal giants of the century. Like two bull elephants locked in mortal combat, they bellowed and roared imprecations and abuse. And the spectators sat uneasily in the sweltering heat with murder in their hearts, barely able to restrain themselves. At stake was the freedom of every American. Wow. So I've been wanting to read this for quite some time. And it's a quick, short read. It's only like 126 pages. So I picked that up from the library because I was in the mood for it. The next book I have is for one of my book clubs that I'm part of. I'm trying to make an effort to make more friends out in the real world. And so I thought, why not join a book club? So I've joined a couple. I've actually joined 3, and this is for my classics book club. And the book is My Antonia by Willa, Cather. I know this is a story about immigrants, and I know several of my friends on Goodreads have read it, but I don't know too much about it besides that. On the back, there's a quote that says, from the book, that says, I know so many women who have kept all the things that she had lost, but whose inner glow had faded. Whatever else was gone, Antonia had not lost the fire of life. So it's about an immigrant woman from Russia, I believe, who lives in Nebraska in the 1800s. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting to that. My book club meets on to discuss this book on June 12th, I believe. So I'm looking forward to it. The next book that I have is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. Now, this is a book that I'm buddy reading with Meg and Sue from the restricted section. I have technically read this book before. I was supposed to read it for school back in high school, but I don't remember anything. I remember that I distinctly remember chapters of it, like reading chapters of it, like the physical process of it, but I did not retain anything. I didn't really pay attention a lot in school. I was really depressed most of the time, and I was just pretty angsty. I thought I had better things to do than to sit in school all day. But so I'm giving the book another try, and hopefully I'll really enjoy it. I start reading that today with Meg and Sue, and we'll be finished with that in a little over a week. So stay tuned for a review or some kind of wrap-up or something like that where I talk about my feelings for the book. I know it's about 4 Chinese women and their daughters, Chinese American women, and the process of being growing up in an immigrant household and things like that. And I've heard both really good things about it and really negative things about it. So I've heard a lot of people describe Amy Tan as being a trash writer. But I'm a little, Amy Tan is from my hometown, so I'm a little reluctant to listen to that. I'd like to think that she's pretty good, so I'm hoping that I turn out to like this book. The next book I have is The Refrigerator Monologues by Catherynne Valence. Now, this is a book that's it's pretty short. It's like 160 pages, I believe, and it's about a series of female comic book characters and superheroes, and discussing their untimely deaths. And it's discussing how they basically they come out of the refrigerator and they say, and they all talk and bemoan about how their deaths and how their lives were used to further male character arcs. And so I've heard it's really funny, and it looks really good. So I'll read a little bit from the back. Our numbers change, a few more this week, a few less the next, depending on if anyone gets called up to the big game. You can't keep your lunch date if some topside science jockey figures how to make a zombie you. We totally understand about that sort of thing. She'll be back. They always come back. Zombies never last. Power sputters out, and clones don't have the self-preservation instinct God gave a toddler in a stove shop. I watch them come and go, and sometimes, for a minute, I think that sweet-faced geek in his lab will reanimate my rotting corpse for once, but he never looks twice at me. Never picked for the team for all eternity. I guess you can call me the president of Hell Hath Club. It's her honorary and empty, and mostly means I get to the cafe first and hold our table. I order for everyone. I keep the minutes such as they are, and when the girls settle in, we open up our stories. It is like the morning edition. Yeah, so it sounds really good, and it sounds like a pretty lighthearted read, and definitely a mix up from the books that I typically read, which are really depressing and pretentious. And yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to it. The last book I have is Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. Now, I have not read any Stephen King. Now, I know many of you will say that I'm not a real reader because of that, because I have been called that for not having read any Stephen King. But I'm not a big fan of horror. I don't like being scared. I don't really like being titillated, and so I've just never stumbled onto any of his books. But now I'm making a conscious effort to read some Stephen King, and I heard him describing Mr. Mercedes in an interview of his, and I thought it actually sounded kind of interesting. It was inspired based off of a real-life story of a man who drove a car into a crowd of people, and he killed like a dozen or so of them, I believe. And so Stephen King started wondering what could have possibly inspired a man to do something like this. So he imagined a whole scenario where this man is a serial killer and he likes to kill people by running them over. And so I believe there's a cop who's another character in this, or a retired cop, and he's trying to solve the mystery of who did this before it happens again. And it's pretty beefy. It's like over 400 pages, but it looks like the print, there's a lot of spaces in between the print, if you can tell. And I'm buddy reading this with Amy over at From the Dusty Bookshelf, and I'll leave a link to her channel down below. I'll leave a link to the restricted sections channel down below too, in case you haven't heard of them. They're great. You should check them out. They're a lot more popular than I am, though, so you probably have heard of them. Yeah, so those are the books I have checked out from the library right now. I'm pretty happy with what I have. I'm also on the waiting list to get a bunch of other books, things like Circe and the Song of Achilles and the Female Persuasion. What else? And Crazy Rich Asians. But a lot of those I'm on the list for. It'll take me a couple months to get because I'm pretty low down on the list. So stay tuned for some reviews of those. If you'd like to see reviews of any of these books, please let me know down in the comments. If you have read any of them, let me know, and we can discuss them. I'd love to hear from you all. Have a great day. Bye!